it's Mark here, and I'm going to have another module in the series, and this time we're going to look at creating a simple Tuscan landscape. Many people love the Tuscan landscape and dream of visiting it. Now we can create it in a simple watercolour and have that moment preserved and remind us of such a wonderful place. Again, we're just going to take a basic sheet of watercolour paper, and we're going to use a series of glazes just to build up the picture, add some detail, and that will help us create the image. It's quite a simple process. We're not going to draw, we're just going to do everything with the brushes, so keep it simple so you don't have to worry about drawing, setting up. You might want to draw if you want, but this is a nice simple way just to give you a nice confidence to produce and work with the materials. It's the watercolour that does all the work, we've just got to put it in the right place. So to start off, we're going to get a brush, which is important. We're going to dampen that brush. This is the dagger brush I often mention. It's a chiselled brush, gets narrow with the length. And with the brush, one tip, you can actually just pinch the end if you want to make it more detailed, but otherwise just use the full flow and width of the brush while you're painting. Now, a wash or a glaze is just when you take the water and you load it with your paint. And obviously I'm going to start with, now I'm not going to do a blue sky, I'm going to do a sort of dusky, late in the day, warmed up sky that's typical of the Tuscan sun setting with the citrus trees casting long shadows. We do a bit of mixing here. We'll just pick up a nice vivid red. I'm going to put it in a little mixing dish, which is just a wee plate or saucer, which is white, and it helps you just see the colours you're making before you apply them to the paper. And always wash your brush between mixes or take a fresh brush, and we're going to take a little bit of blue just to tint that, make it slightly mauve colour, just to cool it down. We're just changing the colour temperature just by lifting a little blue, and it gives us that wee hint of a nice dusky mauve colour. So we'll apply that to the paper just nicely onto the dry paper. I'm going to load the brush up. Once you put the initial amount of colour on, you can move it around the page and just drag it down, and this is what a glaze is. We're just applying the water and the pigment, which is the paint, and we're just moving it just gently across our watercolour paper. Now we're working flat at the moment, but you can actually lift the page and your paper and tilt it, and then you can let the watercolour run, slight gravity action just to let it graduate, but you don't have to do that, but it's something you can have a try at. And we'll just lay that layer in. Now I've got to think where the mountains are coming, so I'm deliberately going to shape and finish the wash where the mountains are. There's two mountains at the back of my image. I'm using an image I'm painting from a previous painting, and it lets us, it's a good reference point, or use a photograph that you like or a favourite view, and then just try and translate that. So we're just the outline of the hills in the background, so sky to hills. Then we've got to think the middle landscape is a series of folding landscapes, very typical of the landscape in Tuscany. For those of you who have been there, you'll realise what that is. So I'm going to take some green just from my tray. Again, mix water, keep it nice and light as a glaze. And I'm just going to do a series of bands of curves, and then an overlapping curve, so two long arcs. And it doesn't matter if they overlap at this point, we're just defining the shapes, and we'll then put another one in front. So I'm just going to make this a bit stronger. I'm now going to do a series of just quick strokes from right to left, which actually hint like the vineyard lines that you get of the vineyards. So we've got a wee bit of space between each, and just gently pull down. Keep loading the brush with paint, and you can go back in, drop more in, and just nice action, just pull it right down. Okay, curve it, because remember they're curving on the hill. And then on the other side we're going to do a paler version of that. So just take some of the pigment that we've laid and take it over, and we'll just put another band of curves very lightly. Now, there'll be some shadows eventually in the foreground, so we're going to take a nice purpley blue, just from my palette, and I'm going to put that in the corner. I'm deliberately making this strong because there'll be shadows. At the end of the day, you're going to have long shadows across the landscape. Gently curve them round. So this is very much closer to us, and we can do the same on the right hand side. This is our foreground where the shadows appearing, so we can just randomize the shadows. So we've got troughs of light that are, the troughs are light, the deeper areas where the light's not reaching where the shadows are, and the highlights are where the light's just catching. Okay, leave that to dry, and then again wash your brush. And we've got a villa in the top of the ridge, so we'll take the terracotta roof, so we can take some red and orange and just mix that in our tray to make red and yellow give us a nice orange. The nice terracotta. So we're just going to, in the top left, we're going to put a simple roof shape, just along the top, come down, and don't paint on the extreme right, because that's where the light's hitting. And we'll just put another lower one in behind and just leave that, a slight overlap. That's like the big barns. Okay, just leave them, simple as that. Just do the roofs, don't worry about the rest of the structure. And at this stage we could even quickly put in a little wash in the hills, because we haven't actually attended to that yet. So we're going to put a pale wash, just going to take a blue and really just very thin blue wash, just water it right down, load it into your mixing plate or tray, and just create, again, sweeping action, just get the line coming right around, and just let it dry out as it comes down, because there'll be a wee band of lighter areas in the painting, which just where the light's reaching, and it just gives a nice contrast to the tint that's behind. Now we can have just behind the villa. Got to be very careful here, because we don't want to touch the paint we've laid down, which is still drying. It's thicker, otherwise it will bleed, and we don't want that. Just keep it very just gently, and I'm just painting around the front, but leaving the gap where the light will be at the front of the villa. And you'll see all we need to do is put windows in that, and we create the effect of our eye fills in the rest. Okay, and then you can still pull some of these lines down, because it's all a series of curving arcs. That's what Tuscan is all about, curving landscape. I'm going to drop a slightly darker green in as a mid, in that middle area. Didn't touch, just again, just to contrast, bring it down, leave a gap, keep coming down, down. And we're just simulating the ridges of the vineyards and the fields. Okay, now, again, you can move paint on the surface when you've laid it down, because until it dries, you've still got time to use your brush, and you can manipulate it on the page. So you might just want to look at the overall balance and just be creative, let the paintbrush do the work. And you can even see this, the purpley corner I've got here as my shadow area. I'm going to lift some of that because it's still not quite dry, and I can even dot in a series of, like a wee hedgerow, just to break up, because obviously there'll be some, or little trees even. You just create the effect of the landscape being broken up at different points. Again, if you need more paint, I could put some dark blue just to contrast. Just gently work your way around. And again, I'm just going to go back down and just drop in with that blue, just re-emphasize some of the lines, because we've got a series of tones, because the landscape's made of multiple layers of colour and shadow, highlight and mid-tones, because our eye picks up that. So if we make it look something like that, it helps. Okay, now we just need to pull this together. We need some citrus trees and some windows, and I'm just going to a secondary glaze in the sky just to give it a wee bit more depth. So I'm going to just use, this is a rusty red, but you could use just red and a wee bit brown just to make a nice little wash. So again, load the brush, just see what you've got the colour. I'm just going to drop from the top, pull it down and just let it run out as it comes down towards these hills, but just differentiate it because there might be a wee wisp of cloud in there that's just slightly lighter or darker in the sky. And we'll now take some dark green. Now, this is for the cypress trees that we're going to do now. So, cypress trees, quite simple, tall, very elliptical, but very narrow. So just you can practice on a wee bit of paper before you do it. That's always a good thing. Now, think of the scale of the villa. So some of them can be quite tall near the villa. So I'm going to put the lights coming from right to left. So we're going to do the darker colour on the left-hand side, because we're always trying to suggest to the viewer that we know where the light's coming from. If it bleeds, take a bit of tissue and just dab it back, because we've still got time to do that. Or let it, if the wash is a wee bit wet, just give it a bit longer to dry. I'll just carry on just now, so we just give you the overall effect. But don't rush this, just take your time. Left hand side, series of long, very narrow elliptical shapes. And we'll do some further away, they'll be smaller obviously, to give us scale. And we could do some on the ridge at the far right, just to give us a sense of perspective. Again, go back in and maybe tweak some of the areas that you've laid. But don't be frightened of leaving areas of white, because we can always add into white. We can't retrieve the white once we've painted it, because it'll dry in and set. We'll just deepen a wee, take a much darker, nearly black, but we'll just mix it with a wee bit brown to warm it up. And even a wee bit orange warms up the colour. And we're just going to ground the landscape with some shadows. And I'm going to put a wee shadow line on the left hand side of the cypress trees. We're not even painting the right hand side because the light's going to nearly bleach it out. Just check the shapes you want. You might want to just put a little bit on the right to define the trees. And in the hedgerow, just to pick out another, give it a wee flick. And the last thing we're going to do is just make reference to the building. Just take a wee pinch of brush, make a wee point, and we're just going to hint a couple of wee doors and windows. That's all we need to do, because your eye fills in the rest. A wee shadow under the eaves. And a wee vertical for the division between the two buildings. And just a wee bit darkness where it's shaded just slightly to the left. Wash the brush and just give a wee odd tint just to make it look like the shadow side of the structure. You could put a wee tiny wee scraping of the right hand side just to suggest that's the edge of the building. And one last thing with a wee chimney pot. Just take a wee bit red, just dab a wee bit on, and sharpen up that. And just take a bit of tissue, because that's bled a little bit there. Too bad. We can tidy that up after. If everything's not quite as tidy as you want, let it dry, and then you can eventually just take a pretty dry paintbrush and just drop in a couple of lines just to firm something up. But the best thing, let it dry, then go back. And just to finish, I'm going to take a pen, just put a wee signature. A wee birds in the sky. 1, 2, just a wee point of interest. And that's a very quick and very sort of simple little Tuscan landscape. Just before I finished, one last thing. There's a wee bit of shadows, because we said it was dusk. So let's just re-emphasise, so we don't want to confuse the viewer. And that's a wee tip just to remember for the next class. So I hope you've enjoyed that one, and we'll do another module soon.